everyone, and welcome to the last episode of SOS Destinations. We have been discussing sustainability from different points of view as per criticism and opportunity as well. As we know, this is the largest and maybe the fastest growing economic sectors in the world. It's driving force. It currently provide 1 on 10 jobs worldwide. It can foster economic growth, sustainable development, empower women. So it's something that I really care about. Empower indigenous communities, guarantee a local community education, health, and well-being. But it's also, as we were telling in the Italian episode a few minutes ago, it's a subtle and very narrow line in between development and criticism. Today, we are closing our cycle with an exceptional and important guest, Alessandra Priante. She's UNWTO European Region Director. Hello and welcome, Alessandra. It's a true pleasure having you here today with us. I would have hundreds of questions for you, but I would just ask you a few of them. So what has been UNWTO climate action journey today?
Well, thank you very much, Silvia, for having me. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Damiano, Mirko, and everyone at Data Appeal, and everyone that is watching. I would say that we've always been very conscious, but clearly now we do understand that the climate action is non-negotiable. And we, especially during the pandemic, we developed a lot of awareness and a lot of guidelines as well. But one of them was very much focused on understanding the impact that tourism has for the climate change and pushing people, private sector, governments, and the people in general to react to this and to reach the possibility of really making an impact. And that's why we called upon a climate action for the tourism sector in the latest COP26. And we launched the Glasgow Declaration on Tourism, which I hope that the Data Appeal company will join very soon. And it is about committing for real. It's about committing to certain objectives and becoming very concrete about your climate awareness and the actions that you should undertake in order to offset and prevent this situation from becoming really, out of control. The problem with the tourism sector is that everyone loves us, but nobody really wants to or understands how big we are. And we're not big in terms of turnover only or occupation or GDP that we generate. We're big because we include a lot of other sectors. Therefore, we feel that we have a great responsibility in making sure that awareness is spread all over the different sectors that are collateral to ours, starting from transport, for example, over to energy consumptions and creation, over to the so-called service areas. No, everything has to have an awareness, because if we don't have an awareness to start from, we're never going to be able to control our climate impact.
And what is the biggest, I know you are facing, as we all are, a lot of challenges, but in your opinion, what is the biggest that UNWTO is now facing?
Well, I think what the world is facing, which is the conflicts. We're now in the middle of a situation that people like to call special operations, others like to call war. But the problem is we are in a situation where a country is actually invading another country, crossing the borders with a military operation that completely disrupts life in the entire region. Not only because of the cost, it's none of our business to understand who's the cost for the rise in gas prices. People say that gas prices shouldn't even be risen because the provisions of gas from Russia had never stopped. But reality is, the real impact is that this affects the entire airspace. So this has an impact. And it has an impact over the whole of Eastern Europe. We have countries who've invested all of themselves to make sure that there is a future, also through tourism, for their economies. And now this is absolutely out of the question. Who of you is going to book the next vacation to Moldova, which is under Ukraine, and basically 3 hours drive from Crimea? Any of you? So you know what I'm saying? But Moldova, which is a small country, growing country, was investing very much in tourism to diversify their economy. So the impact that this is having overall in the pace of development is enormous. So we went from a world that was shut down because we didn't know how to react or face or confront or manage a global disease and the spread of it, to a situation where there is a man-made disruption. So once again, we're talking about what men can cause to the earth and to other people. So for us, the biggest challenge is actually the salt of our life, because we're the United Nations. So our job is to help. So really and truly, this is the biggest challenge at the moment, because we think that after what happened with the global health situation and then the urgency of the climate action, to add a conflict to the equation just creates an enormous stress to the world as a whole. And maybe, who knows, and this is my personal belief, the world is never going to be the same again after this. So let's see what comes next.
Well, under a center point of view, let's hope that it won't be just right the same, as I hope that when COVID started, let's hope that we learn something, we improve something, we change something. Today we are talking sustainability, so let's hope that under this point of view, we will make some improvement and better understand what we are facing. UNWTO is contributing a lot. I know that Damiano has some very specific questions about measuring also sustainability for you. Damiano, if you want to.
Of course. So, buongiorno a tutti. Thank you very much, Alessandra, to joining us. I've been collaborated with UNWTO since 3 years ago, I would say, and it was always on developing system of tourist statistics, which is one of the main goals that external collaborators working with UNWTO have. The initiative towards a statistical framework for measuring the sustainability of tourism, launched by UNWTO, aim to develop an international statistical framework. And in my opinion, this should be a way also to work towards sustainability. So in your opinion, would you agree on that? And which are, let's say, some possible steps to make a system of tourist statistics a driver of sustainability?
Well, of course, we're very proud of our MSTs, the Measuring Sustainable Tourism Standards. We have pilot projects, which are in reality pilot countries that are committing to change their statistics, the possibility of measuring sustainability. Sustainability is something incredibly concrete and pragmatic. And if you don't measure it, it cannot be a strategic objective, because when you measure it, you can understand how much you're achieving it. So this is why it is so incredibly important to have standards that you can actually incorporate in your policies. We believe that this is incredibly important for the way forward, because this is one of the ways through which the strategic policies are made real. For us, sustainability is not just a word. We've been advocating from the beginning of this pandemic that only sustainability and innovation would be the two keywords to find a solution. And sustainability in all its aspects, but mainly sustainability in all its pragmatism. And we've been able actually to identify possibilities of concretely measuring how impactful sustainable policies were with regards to opening borders, for example. Those countries that had in place sustainable policies were the ones that were able to open borders in a more, I would say, organic way and with less disruption. So for us, definitely remains priority number one. It should be for everyone. That's what we believe.
Thank you. Just a small addendum on that, because system of tourist statistics is not just, in my experience, measures, definition, but also, let's say, how make the different stakeholders coordinate together, talk together, and share their information. So this is also a way to, let's say, work in a sustainable way where the different stakeholders with also different kind of interest in the territory can spare together their resources, but also their goals.
Indeed. And we are, for example, we recently spoke with the European Commission about the work on TSA. And so we do want to make sure that we are all aligned when we're trying to harmonize as well and make sure that TSAs are making sense.
And we know how TSA could be, you know, a final goal of a process where the countries themselves start working together on the data and the different kind of data. And
indeed. And it's very important to have a common language, because if you don't have a common language, then you'll result, I mean, the tourism statistics are not as homogeneous as one would think. And this, to me, this was a fixation of mine when I was in Italy, that I never believed that any of the, for example, general top 10s that will put us in position number 5 in France or Spain in position number 1, because of the way that they were accounting for international arrivals, because of the amount of sunk data. I've always thought that we were number 1. We're not comfortable in saying it, because if we would say it, that we wouldn't be asking for more money, which is something that the Italians like to do a lot. So we had nothing to nag about if we were number 1. And number 2, we would have to come clean. And we love sunk costs in Italy. So, you know, that's why. But for example, I mean, as we say in Italy, you'd like to crash an open door when you talk to me about these things, but at the end of the day, TSA makes sense if there's a common language. Otherwise, we're talking about different islands who talk to themselves.
It's very important that UNWTO has this leader role in working on these initiatives, because as we were saying, sustainability is not something in the air. It's something that we have to put on the ground, and as you said, in a very pragmatic way. And this is one of the most important way to understand for each kind of destination, even at sub-national level, which is the level and how it can be compared, and also the evaluation that it can get from this, let's say, different pillars of sustainability. So please, Silvia. If not, we are just talking about data, and I don't want to much go in the data.
No, of course. But I was thinking about, different language, but also different certification. I myself was studying lately all the certification just in Europe as per sustainability for destination and hospitality businesses. And it's crazy because there are plenty of them. They're all quite similar, but slightly different. So this is also finding a common language, finding a common ground. You can all have your own certification if you want, but they should be analyzing and stating basically the same thing. Otherwise, it's like a jungle. I understand that for a destination or a small or medium-sized Italian standard hospitality business, it might be a nightmare to understand what's the difference, why these differences are there, what's the best option. So this common language issue is even on this ground. So I was wondering, what advice can you give to other supporting organizations in Europe or worldwide and tourism destination in order to start working and then to achieve a more sustainable development?
I hope I understood your question, Silvia, because we're speaking about certification processes.
Yeah, no, that was just to close up the language and data part.
So I leave certification in the hands of private companies. Certification is a business, and we don't deal with that in that sense, because we don't have let's say the juridical structure to certify that one thing is better than the other. What we do is we acknowledge, which is different. Acknowledging and leading by example is something that we use with countries to make sure that there is the right example in place to be imitated. So I would say that one of the key ingredients to make sure that sustainable strategies are really effective is you have to manage your strategy. Once you identify your objective, your priorities, you do a thorough analysis of what you have in your hands, you need to manage that strategy. You need to manage that implementation. Management means anticipation. It means clicking objectives with results. It means adjusting if you're making mistakes. So until we manage, any strategy in the tourism sector is just a piece of paper. So for us, what is really relevant is that someone else said it before us. If you want to make the change, you have to be the change. So for us, it's very relevant that this is taken very seriously, and it's taken very seriously at every level. And for us, SDG 17, which is the public-private partnership SDG, is key. In a sector like the one of tourism, if you don't have a very healthy collaboration between the public and the private sector, you're going nowhere. So in this sense, whatever is done at a country level should be the result of a good, harmonious, potentially harmonious agreement between the public and the private sector. And whatever is done internationally should be done as well in that sense, because the private sector tends to collaborate quite well at an international level. There's less competition than one would imagine, because there is a thorough agreement on some core objectives. So what for us is really relevant is that, again, this is achieved in a very solid way. Yeah?
Yeah, correct. And if I may add one thing, the role of UNWTO in capacity building, in destination management, in marketing promotion, in research is very important for any kind of destination. So if destination, they can count on the support of UNWTO. And also I wanted to ask another question. For this reason, the major project that UNWTO even launched, I'm thinking about the Silk Road, which is, I would say, maybe very deeply involved in the conflict now and impacted with the conflict now. So my question is, how this role, which is the leading role that UNWTO has in this project, has been affected already by the news and the conflict that is happening right now?
Well, Damiano, it's a difficult question to answer because I'm not in a position to say something because the conflict is ongoing. I wouldn't say the news. I would say the actual situation. As I mentioned before, airspaces are closed. Some countries are inaccessible. Some other countries are politically aligned with one of the actors of this conflict. So it is very difficult to forecast and foresee what's happening. We stand ready to support everyone, but we're not in the position now. It's too soon. I would say it's too fresh to make any kind of, it was, to me, it almost it reminds me of when in the middle of the pandemic, I intervened in an Italian meeting, online meeting, whatever, conference. And there was a comment from someone who wanted to ask me, how did I see the Chinese tourism towards UNESCO side proceeding? So, first of all, I don't see any Chinese tourists. Second, I don't believe in the brand of UNESCO. I'm tired of hearing that, but that is very, very personal. Please don't take it as an official position. This is very much Alessandra's position, but this reminds me of it in the sense that it's too soon, guys. We need to wait until the situation is resolved and we find at least a situation that allows us to do some proper planning. Because with airspaces and corridors and sanctions, economic sanctions in place, it's impossible. We have an entire part of the world that's completely cut out, together with China, who's not traveling. So it's all about Europe once again, and it's all about Italy. And I'm just looking forward for you guys to make sure that you're tapping on the real data. So UNWTO is going to look into the data appeal company, whom we love very much.
We are developing an index regarding to the sustainability. So as soon as you want, we will be very happy to show you, since it's applicable to any kind of destination in the world.
Excellent. Looking forward for that. I think an index is a great way of, coming forward. And I'm just looking forward for you to share it with us as soon as possible.
Fantastic. So thank you very much.
You're
welcome.
welcome.
You will. So Alessandra, I know you are on a very, very busy schedule. So once more, thank you for your time. I don't want to seal it any longer. And we'll get back to you with all the details about the index, of course.
Thank you so much. And have a great one. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
And thank you, everybody. Have a nice
Bye
afternoon.
bye. Ciao. Grazie.